Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be making this snow child Christmas ornament. It's fun and easy, so let's get started. To make our little vintage lace snow child, we will start with this pattern. It's 3 by 5, so it's 5 inches tall. Here, there we go, 5 inches tall and a little bit less than 3 inches wide. There's a sort of like a straight part at the top of the head so that we have something to gather up, and then slightly curve out to about 2 1/4 inches here, and it's about the same here, 2 1/2. It's not that much bigger. I'm not sure what else you need to know, but let me put my ruler right here so you can see it's about 2 inches down is where the neck. The only trick to drawing this pattern is not to make your curves too severe. Now I've used this pattern to cut out a piece of medium weight fusible interfacing. I will fuse this to the back of a piece of white felt. I'm using wool felt, but you wouldn't have to use wool felt. Use any kind of felt. And then I'm going to cut out the felt shape right around the edge. The reason that I'm interfacing the felt is just to provide a little layer of opacity so that the embroidery threads don't show through to the front. Just a little layer of protection. Here's my white felt snow child front. The important thing is not to put your features too high. You need a lot of room for the hat. So I just draw a line across the middle here, the widest point of the face, and then I also like to have a line in the center. That's not as important, but sometimes, you know, you want to make sure the eyes are equidistant from the center. And I don't want to make my features any higher than the center. It seems kind of weird right now, but it'll work out just fine. So I'm going to place my eyes right here, about 1/4 inch out from the center, like that. Then the nose is going to be a carrot. And so your carrot could be just straight down like that, but I would prefer for it to be like this. So it just has a little bit more personality. And then for the mouth, I really don't need to draw the mouth, but I'm going to do, I think about 7 French knots. So I usually put 1 in the middle, 1 here, 1 on each corner. See now, I didn't make it very even, but that's the idea. It's knot, 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 knot. And let's embroider. I'll start with the eyes. I'm using 2 strands of black floss. And I'm just going to make little triangles for the eyes. I'm going to try to start at this outside point of the triangle, about like that. And then this is just about at the center. I mean, this center line is the top of the eye. And then here. And then 1 in the center. All 3 of these stitches go through the same hole at the top of the triangle. I think that's going to be fine. And then I also like to do an eyebrow. I didn't draw the eyebrows, but I just want to show you it's a little slanted line like that. And that is above the center. Just a little above the center though. Not more than about 1/4 inch. The top of the eyebrow is just about even with the center of the eye, like that. And that's all there is to it. Now I'm going to secure my thread in the back, and again, this is where these floater threads that go in between the features can show through to the front if you don't have this extra layer. This interfacing also makes the front of the snow child a little bit easier to sew. Like when we're applying the lace, it gives you something a little bit more firm. Now I'll do the second eye. The second eye is just like the first. So I'm going to start, actually I think I'll start on this side again. I'm not trying to make the eyes look identical. They're only 3 stitches. So it'd be hard to make them look too different, but just kind of approximately the same size. You can tell this one's a little bit wider at the bottom, just a little. And then there's the one in the middle, the stitch in the center. That also goes up. So all 3 knots go through the same point up there. And then the eyebrow. Here. And about here. And again, they don't have to be exactly the same. You can already see that this child has a little personality. I'm going to just sort of secure my thread in the back. I'm not making a big knot or anything because I know I can touch this with my hot glue gun a little bit later. Just boop, 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 and that kind of helps to seal it. Now for the nose, I'm going to use 2 strands of orange floss. And it's just a triangle. I'm going to create sort of a satin stitch, but the stitches don't have to lay right next to each other. They don't have to be super tight, packed in. I kind of prefer more of a sketchy look, and I'm just going to start at the wide end and just taper to the point. That could be enough for just a little nose, but I think I'm going to add a couple more stitches. They're getting very small, but they will show because there's such a strong contrast in the color of the thread. I'm trying not to split the stitch. I'm trying not to let the point catch in between the threads of the previous stitch. I just want them to lay next to each other. That looks pretty good, right? Okay, so now I'll just sort of go back through on the back to secure the ends. That looks good. And remember, this is disappearing marker. This purple is disappearing, and so, you know, it won't show. In about an hour, it'll be gone. Now I'm going to do the mouth with 2 strands of red floss. I'm just going to do a series of French knots right along these dots. I tried using 3 strands, and I felt like the knots were just a little too strong. I think the 2 strands is just right. So I'm wrapping 3 times. So I'm going to come out right here on one of my dots, and then 1, 2, 3. Then reinsert my needle just about in the same spot and pull it through. These are French knots, and you know, if you're not super familiar or comfortable with this, there are probably all kinds of places to get reinforcement in the technique. And then this 4th one is about the center, which is why it's helpful to have that line here. And I don't know what else there is to it. 1, 2, 3, reinsert the needle, and then pull it through. I guess one thing that I learned whenever I was cross-stitching, I think maybe the 80s, that my original instructor recommended 24 inches of floss. So I've always kind of stuck with that. 24 inches is a nice length. It's not so long that it twists and tangles, and it seems to be long enough to get the job done. Okay, one more. And again, I'm not concerned if they aren't exactly the same or they aren't totally evenly spaced. it's fine. It's actually cuter if there's a little, you know, just a little whimsical off-center, unevenly spaced, whatever. It's really cute that way. Before I go on, I'm going to just use my glue gun and just kind of smudge, 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 smudge. I'm not squeezing out any glue. I'm just touching it so that those ends will stay. And then another thing I want you to see is that the back where the little thread ends are, they do not show in the front. Now for me, this is the funnest part, and that is adding the vintage lace. I have several pieces. I like to start with like an all over kind of lace like this one and sort of add a piece of this as a background. Maybe like that. This one actually has an edge to it, so I'm going to take advantage of that. Kind of place it right there. That'll work. This lace is very fragile. Sometimes I can hear it sort of cracking. So I'll leave a nice allowance. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch this along the top edge and all the way around here, and then I'll trim it. There's already some breaks in the lace, and I just want to secure it before I have more trouble. I'm going to use a super, super narrow zigzag. I have found if I use a straight stitch, then it's much easier just to pull and, you know, just tear. So I'm going to use a little baby zigzag and go all the way around. There we go, that's sewn around the outside. Can you see the little zigzag there? So now I'm just going to trim that off. Okay, now I'm going to add a couple more pieces of lace. I have several options. This one is cute. I'm going to have a ribbon scarf around the neck, so I'm not too worried about this edge. Here's a little eyelet. Which is cute because it's a nice contrast to this cream colored, more delicate lace. And then I have this one, which is also cute. And I like these diamonds because it's easy to determine where, oh, I could go button, 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 or bead, 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 or something right in the center of those holes in the diamonds. So I think I'll do this one and this one. I don't want to go too low because there's a seam allowance there, and if I put it too low, I'm going to lose the lace. Let's see, is this the right side? Okay, this is the right side. Okay, this eyelet is ready to go. My intention is for this little motif to be right in the center, and you know, a lot of times I'll get it lined up just right, and then when I sew it, it gets a little wonky, so I'm not, you know, super concerned about it, but I do have an intention there. And then again, I will take one of these diamonds and I will try to line that up also on the center. And I'm just going to place this over this allowance here at the top of the eyelet. I'm not going to trim that. I'm just going to put it like this. And I'm going to stitch this one down first, and then I'll add this one. I've sewn these laces on with my sewing machine, and I'll trim off this excess. It's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. Now I'm going to add some buttons. I have these, and some beads. I think I'm going to do a pearl, 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 and maybe button, button, and maybe a button down here too. But I wanted to show you that I'm going to use this silk buttonhole twist. This is the thread. It looks like this, or it comes on spools too. So this is the silk thread, silk buttonhole twist, and it's on a very small quilting needle because I just wanted to make sure that I could get it through the purl. And so I used a needle threader. Here it is. Okay. I used a needle threader, which is this, and I applied some beeswax to the thread. It just prevents it from curling and twisting. Boop. If you've never used beeswax or a needle threader. There we go. So I'll use this. I think I want the beads toward the top. So I'll just put one in each one of these diamonds and then see if it looks like that's enough. Right in the center. You know, if you really look at your lace, you'll find all kinds of opportunities for embellishment. Yay. I've worked with these a few times before, and the hole is pretty small. So I just wanted to make sure that my needle would go through. I'm sewing this so that the hole in the bead is across, like that. Since my thread is thick and strong, I'm only going to do a single stitch. You don't have to use silk buttonhole twist. I find it a pleasure to sew with. And when the thread shows like across the buttons, it's just nice to have that silky sort of reflective look of this quality thread. But you don't have to use it. You could use floss or quilting thread or any kind of thread. There's 3 pearls. I think that's enough, so I'm going to secure my thread in the back. For the buttons, I'm going to add 2 buttons. I'm going to put one here and one here. So I'm using the design of the lace to determine the placement. I still have my silk buttonhole twist thread, so I will hold on to that and just stitch through the buttonholes a couple of times. I think I'll just go through twice. 3 times. I feel like there's still enough room in there for one more strand. Great. Okay, that's kind of far to travel, so I'm going to secure this one before I start the next one. So the second one will go right here. I'm going to do 3 stitches to secure this button. And I think that's enough embellishment. You know, I could embellish all day. I could just keep adding rows and rows of lace and stitches and embroidery. But then it takes forever and we'll never finish. So finished is better than perfect. Once again, I'm just going to add a smudge of hot glue, boop, 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 to each of those spots. For the back of the snow child, we will use this sort of natural colored wool felt. This is from Joann Fabrics. It's on the bolt with all the felts, and I always think of it more as a batting because it's thick and lofty and has a lot of like squish and spring to it. But it is called felt on the bolt. You don't have to trim even with the edge. Just give yourself some allowance, and we will sew this right sides together and we'll leave the top straight edge open. Here we go. I've stitched around and I back stitched at both of these ends where I started and finished. And I checked to make sure that I came in far enough here because there's a little bit of stress there. So I'm going to trim this out. Then I'm just going to do a few little clips, not a lot. It's very easy to poke through this fabric in the back, you know, so I don't use anything pointy to turn or stuff it. I'm just going to use my fingers to work this through. And because this back is sort of spongy and stretchy, you have a lot of play in the shape of your snow child. So if you want it to be, you know, really plump and full, you can do that. Or if you want it more flat, you can do that. Here's how it looks turned. Now I'm going to stuff. I have a nice quality of fiberfill, and I'm just going to stuff a little bit at a time and without using any tools. This, again, is very vulnerable, so you don't want to poke. And honestly, if you feel like it might, you know, give you some security, you can always interface this back. I put this on because I like the way that the little fuzziness from the back shows around the edge. Originally, I designed this to have the back made from fur, but it was kind of a disaster. Let me see if I can find one. Well, I'll show you at the end. I just had this fantasy that if I used like a short pile white fur for the backing, that I would have that little halo of fuzz around the edge, but it just didn't work. I like this a lot more. Be sure that you are, you know, giving shape to your character and not just, you know, stuffing, and then you realize that it's overstuffed and it has lost its appeal. So I'm going to continue stuffing all the way to the top. There we go. And now I'll gather up the top with a double strand of white or off-white quilting thread. Just going to go down about 1/4 inch, in and out, all the way around through a single layer, just all the way around. So in other words, I'm not, when I say single layer, I mean I'm not like squishing this together and trying to gather it like that. I'm just going around in a circle. And then I'm gently going to tug on that and tuck in that seam allowance. Like this. So it looks like this. You know, right now I wish I had a little bit more stuffing in there. I'm going to open that up and add a little bit more stuffing to the front here. I just didn't like the way I was getting that gadunk, gadunk, gadunk right there. So I think I'll add a little bit more stuffing. There we go. That's better. I'm tucking those edges in. That's much better. Nice and tight. And then I'm going to go back and forth a few times through the front. And then across the back. I'm trying to secure all those gathers. Maybe a couple more times. And then I'll tie off the thread in the back. That looks pretty good. Remember, I have a hat that's going to cover the top here. That looks good. It's tempting to add the blush for the cheeks, but I like to wait until the very, very end because I don't want to risk the blush transferring to the back. You know, if I put the blush on the cheeks first, then when I went right sides together, I could transfer some of that to the back or to the lace or any other parts of the body. So I'm going to wait until the very end to do that step. All right, next is the hat. For the hat, I cut 2 ovals from cotton velveteen. You could also use felt or, you know, a print or cotton, whatever you like. I use my die cutting machine to cut these ovals. I just wanted to show you this. It's about 2 3/4 across and 3.5 tall. It doesn't have to be this exact size. And you can just rough cut whatever you like. Just get 2 pieces, and the way I do it is just turn it so that the, you know, the smaller curve is at the top, and just slice off about 1/2 inch. You don't need that. And then we're going to just stitch around, leaving this bottom edge open. I've already put black thread in my sewing machine, so I'm ready to go. The velveteen drops a lot of these little black dots. Looks like ants. I don't want you to think that I have ants on my surface. All right, so I'm going to turn this right side out. I did not trim away any of the allowance. I want to maintain the integrity of that seam allowance. This will be the hat. I'm going to tuck in this little bottom edge. And I'm going to add a little bit of stuffing to the inside here. Not a lot, because the top of the head will almost fill in the hat. But I just want to be sure that I have that shape, that rounded shape at the top. I like the look of this type of hat, but you know, you can use a knit fabric to create sort of a stocking cap, or you could add a top hat, or you could, you know, buy a hat, like a little doll hat or something, but this is the shape that I like. I don't know why. Okay, so I tucked the edge under, and I kind of pulled it down a little bit lower in the back here. And of course the front edge is also tucked under. And I'm going to pin it to secure, and I'm going to make sure the side seam is lined up with the side seam here and here. And that looks pretty good. I want to be sure that the features are still showing. And now, of course, you can see how important it is to keep those features low, because you want to be sure that you can see them. And so now with a single strand of black quilting thread, I'm going to start here at the side and sort of whip stitch around, just like I have a nice long needle too. Just like this, kind of down straight, and then skip ahead and come through the black. So down straight through the white, and then skip ahead. That was kind of a big stitch. That one I came up a little too high. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go around the hat twice in this manner. Just through the white and then kind of slant up like that. So I'll go around twice. Now let's make a hat band. I'm using this baker's twine, and I'll start just over here, over one eye, and I'm just going to make a little stitch there. Then I'm going to wrap around and make another stitch here in the back center, just a little stitch, just to kind of keep the hat band in place. I'm going to leave this because we're going to tie that into a bow, and then wrap again. And that's what that stitch is for, to sort of keep that together. Back to here. And I think take this off the needle and tie a little bow right here. I'm going to tie a knot first to make sure that's tight and it stays in place. And then I'll tie a little bow. You can have the loops of your bow, you know, down or up or diagonally, however you like. This bow seems to want to go like this. So I'm going to tie off the streamers, little overhand knots. Don't make these too long because they'll just hang down over the face, and you don't want that. Then I'm going to add a little holly sticker, my favorites. JoLee's Boutique. You can get those in a lot of places. Then a think like that. So I'm going to put the leaves up, and hopefully they will secure this bow so that the holly leaf will hold the loops and the streamers right in place. There we go. That looks good. I always add hot glue to the back of the stickers. I'm going to put some more baker's twine on my needle and then create a hanging loop. Just going to stitch through. There we go. And then for the scarf, I'm going to use this plaid ribbon. This is Offray 7/8 of an inch wide. I'm going to put the knot on that side, opposite of the bow on the hat. See how that looks? That looks good. Okay, then another option is you can add a pom-pom to the top. But I'm just gonna let that idea go. Now I'm going to add some blush to the cheeks. I like to use a lot of blush. The blush just adds so much personality. This is a bright color. I love it. A little bright for me personally, but it looks just right on my little snow child. And we're done. Okay, before I add my conclusion, I will show you, I'll show you my process. Like I say, I imagined that I would use a piece of fur for the back of this and have a little halo of fur around the edge. This one, I used 3 strands for the mouth, and I just felt like that was a little strong. Also, I put the features up too high. This one, the face was good. I used cotton batting, but the fur idea just was not good. This one, I used a short pile fur, which is nice, but I still wasn't getting the effect that I wanted. And I also did a knit fabric for the hat. Not very happy with that one either. Finally, I decided that maybe it was just too much of a triangle here. And so I decided to kind of reshape it into a round bottom and to use the felt on the front and then that sort of batting style felt on the back instead of trying to make the fur work. And I was pretty happy with this, except for I used felt for the hat, and it feels a little flat and dull. So finally, I decided to try the velveteen, and that just gives another sort of texture and a sort of elegance to the design. And so there's the process. Now my purple is almost faded away, so I'm going to say this is done. Thank you for watching my video. If you're enjoying my tutorials, please like, share, and subscribe.